Good showing for this, what we would probably term as one of the lesser finance teams run by Dale Coyne.
Started 21st, now runs 11th. Great run. And Fittipaldi, of course, came in to join Zampedri. He sits just in front of him. And Lazier just ahead of Fittipaldi, as Fittipaldi still driving to catch up. Al Unser Jr., who is still right at 9 seconds ahead.
Are all these Penske chassis the same? Very definitely. They don't have their favorites. This car, in fact, is chassis number 5, which is the one that Paul Tracy used and crashed at Phoenix. Remember that spectacular crash at Phoenix with Matt Schuster and Jacques Villeneuve? The car went back to England, repaired, and now Emerson uses it to run right up at the front.
I'm so sure Buddy Lazier is comfortable with Fittipaldi just behind him. He's waved at him to come on by several times. Fittipaldi's just taking his time.
Well, Buddy Lazier doesn't seem to be too short on power down that front straight. Did you see him? I don't think he saw Zampedri. He had no idea he was there, and we just got away with a possible repeat of the Andretti-Jimmy Vasser incident. Oh, we've seen it so many times. You let one car through and you're totally unsighted for the one behind him that's going to try and follow him. But we got away with one.
We look through the entire order. You can see that Lazier, who is running with Zampedri there, is not really in contest for position because he runs in 20th place while Zampedri runs in 11th. And Fittipaldi still stays in pursuit of Little Al from 2nd place. 9.8 seconds ahead of Fittipaldi is his teammate Al Unser Jr. Is he cruising on to another win? 53 laps are complete. ESPN's coverage of the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 is brought to you by PPG, world leaders in automotive finishes. By Toyota and their full line of quality cars and trucks. Toyota, I love what you do for me. And by your local Yamaha dealer, who invites you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and snowmobiles. At the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 255 laps are complete. Al Unser Jr. is the leader at a record pace of 110.1 miles an hour. Mario Andretti runs in 12th place as he continues his last lap of the Indy cars. And everywhere he goes, the fans just swamp Mario as he's on his Arrivederci tour. He made a ceremonial lap here of the track this morning just before the start of the event, and they cheered him all the way around. One of the great champions leaving, everybody thinks, to become an owner, and if so, does the car he owned end up being driven by Michael Andretti? Brian Herta in the pits. This on the 55th lap. What are they looking for? Jan Beekes?
The reason that Brian Herta is in is A.J. Foyt told us they did not get a full load of fuel last time. They were shorted by 10 laps. That is now put him out of sequence. It's a 3-stop race now for Brian Herta.
It'll be very costly for Brian Herta.
Very, very costly. Herta did such a good job, ran in the top 10 very comfortably. A very, very costly mistake by the team.
Could have been a costly problem for Mario Andretti.
Whoa. As 3 wide there. Herta was all the way over to the right-hand side, and Tracy just blasted through the middle.
Well, Herta was still coming up to speed as Mario closed and Tracy closed behind Mario. Then Mario got trapped behind the slower car of Herta. Here it is again in the blockbuster video blimp.
So Herta didn't change tires. Mario goes in, doesn't have the line. Tracy lines it all up. Now watch this here. Tracy's committed. Mario has nowhere to go. 3 abreast. Thank you, boys, for giving everybody just enough room.
Well, Tracy, there's the door. I'm going for the inside, and I'm through it.
I think Mario will be delighted to leave here and go back to Nazareth, because this has not been a good weekend for him. He was not on the pace in practice or qualifying, and struggling here really to even get himself into the top 10. So this weekend has not been a good one for Mario, or Scott Goodyear for that matter, right behind Brian Herta. This is for position. Oh,
and the same thing happens. And boy, look at Mansell.
Well, well, well. We see it again. Another replay of the Andretti and Conseco Jimmy Vasser crash.
They were fighting for 12th place, Herta and Goodyear, in traffic. Now watch here. Mansell closes from behind. Goodyear goes to the inside. Herta dials across that sweeping entry.
And it didn't look as if Scott Goodyear had taken the line all the way down the inside of Bryan Herta, and that's the result, an identical crash. And Scott Goodyear, who is struggling for performance this season, and now it ends up with a broken car. Here it is again.
With nearly identical damage to that suffered by Michael.
And Mansell gets a grandstand view here. He knows it's going to happen. Watch the car off the ground. Exactly the same as Jimmy Vasser. Such a difficult move to pull off sometimes.
Mansell almost got caught out there. I think he was expecting Herta to stay up on the inside, move to the outside just as Herta did.
Now how costly was the Bryan Herta second stop, the out of sequence stop? It effectively puts him out of the race.
And Scott Goodyear's third DNF of the year. Look at the view from Mansell. Now watch this as Herta comes back across them. Then he finally sees him.
Oh, and Mansell locks up that right front in an attempt to stop making contact himself. But Scott Goodyear has to walk away again and actually creates a full course yellow in the meantime.
The twin checkered flags come out. Gordon Johncock will fire up the PPG pace car, and this time they decide they do need the protection of that full course yellow to get the cars aligned behind the pace car so that they can tow Scott Goodyear's car out of the way. He's already walked away from it. And we'll watch this from the edge of the track.
They can't tow that car because that left front suspension is completely broken. Vasser's car, they could simply drag it away with the tow truck. Hence, he didn't need a full course yellow for that one.
So the twin yellows are out at the start-finish line, and the pace car is on the course, and Nigel Mansell and others decide lap 59 may be a place to pit. Scary?
Well, we're watching both Mario Andretti and Nigel Mansell, the Newman Haas team drivers, coming in. Oh, what was that lap count at this point?
59 laps complete.
Well, that means it becomes a three-stop race unless this is an awfully long yellow, because 34 laps is the maximum they figure anybody can do out of 102. And Mansell's away, and it wasn't a particularly fast stop. Of course, it was under yellow. Let's go to Jan.
Jacques Villeneuve just had trouble getting into his pit because he had to go around the outside of Adrian Fernandez. Now they're cleaning his visor, but he was able to keep the engine running, even though it was a very tight turn. We've seen no changes. Oh, Adrian Fernandez was close there, and he's away.
Adrian Fernandez really hammered the throttle coming out there. Even though they're under yellow, he wants to get back in the lineup as quickly as he can. Driving for the Gallus team, by the way, H.L. Gallus for the first time in 10 years, not here. Rick's dad watching the race. Doctor said, stay home for just one, will you please? We're back at Portland International, the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200, as we watch Bryan Herta, who is involved in that confrontation with Scott Goodyear, on the tow rope now behind the IndyCar safety vehicle on his way back to the pits. And no true indication as to why. I'm surprised if it's engine. They ought to be able to just restart it. Must be something more critical. There doesn't seem to be any severe damage there unless he just wants to make sure that that car is okay before he races or runs it at all again.
It looks like there may be some drivetrain or maybe transmission damage, because you're right, the engine would just fire up, he can drive it back. But maybe the impact on that right rear suspension with Scott Goodyear in fact broke something terminally in that drivetrain. But a great run by Bryan Herta today.
So a full course yellow underway, and we'd like to thank the Blockbuster Video Blimp for providing ESPN with these beautiful aerial shots of Portland International for today's race, which is now 61 laps old of the 102 lap scheduled distance. Maybe we can find out more of the Herta situation from his car owner, A.J. Foyt, Gary.
Yeah, indeed, Paul. AJ is here, and I know you're frustrated because of the problem. They didn't get a full load of fuel on that first stop, and it ends up being doubly costly now.
Well, that's exactly right. When you screw up like we did in the pits, then you get yourself in a position to get run over like we did, and then we come in the pits and you're supposed to out. But it was just confusing right here in the pits, and we just need to work on it. We've had some good stops, and the boys are all young. They've done a hell of a job, but when you make one screw up, another one follows, and that's exactly what happened to us today.
Do you worry about that impacting a young rookie driver who's only in his 4th race?
I'm quite sure that did something, but if we wouldn't have screwed up the first time, we wouldn't have been in that position. So we have nobody to blame but ourselves.
Well, the car is back in right behind you now, AJ, and the crew's taking a look. Will he have a chance to get out, do you think?
I don't know. We have to look at the gearbox.
Okay. Paul?
So A.J. Foyt goes over to talk to Bryan Herta as we take a look at that same situation again from Nigel's view.
And AJ confirms what we thought. A double whammy here, because he should never have been in this position. He was way ahead of these cars, safely in a top 7 position, I believe. And then this happens and the day is over. But fair play to A.J. Foyt to take the full blame on behalf of the team and not lay the blame on Bryan Herta's doorstep.
You know, there's some great drivers, contemporaries of A.J. Foyt in his early days in the 60s, Len Sutton and Jack Turner, who both live in the area here and were at the track yesterday. So fun to watch the two of them just hang around and watch racing. Len, who finished 2nd in the Indy 500 once, and Jack, of course, you remember, did those spectacular barrel rolls down the straightaway more than once. When we said, where are you going to be for the race? They said, home, watching ESPN. Best view there is.
Isn't it great to see A.J. Foyt, though, emotionally involved with his team and his driver? I think he really enjoys taking somebody who nobody has heard of in IndyCar racing and trying to mold him into a true successful talent of the future.
All right, as we're ready to come back to green, Al Unser Jr. will lead the field back. Emerson Fittipaldi in 2nd. Paul Tracy in 3rd. In 4th is Robbie Gordon, and Nigel Mansell is 5th. Now there are some other cars mixed in there. Robbie Groff for 1. Bryan Herta has just rolled out of the pits and back into the fight. Now 2nd place Fittipaldi has to handle up Fernandez and Groff, and does so.
And that's a battle for position between Groff and Fernandez. 13th and 14th position. Mike Groff in the Honda and Adrian Fernandez in the Gallus car.
So while they gave way to Fittipaldi, they had to do it very carefully so they could continue their fight. But Al Unser Jr. squirted out into the lead, and Fittipaldi is already playing catch-up.
Lots and lots of battles going on here. That's Dominic Dobson's car. You see behind them the Pac West car. Groff, Fernandez, and Dominic Dobson. 13, 14, and 15. Now, of course, has the latest development Honda engine. He didn't have it in Detroit. He does have it here. Ran well in practice, looking for more horsepower, though, from this engine. But right now, learning and gaining valuable reliability mileage.
Now, you think the season has been rough for Rahal. Imagine it for Groff, because he's always had one step down as Fernandez moves to the inside, grabs the position from Groff.
That's how to make it
to
clean.
The inside as well, looking for racing room.
That's right. That's how to make it clean, Paul. You have to get alongside the other car to make sure they do not have an opportunity to pull in. That's what Fernandez did there with Mike Groff.
At the front, it's still Little Al. 6 cars on the leader lap. Even with that caution, we are still running at a record pace, 106.3 miles an hour. The record's 105.
Paul Tracy behind Villeneuve. That is not a battle for position. Villeneuve is 7th. Tracy is 3rd. But you can see he's almost a full lap ahead of Jacques Villeneuve.
Next car behind Tracy will be Robbie Gordon's Valvoline car. There it comes off the corner. Gary Gerold's now with Scott Goodyear, can maybe update us more on the Herta situation. Whoa, 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 whoa. We'll hang on just a second, Gary, as they're tight once again in the festival corners. And Tracy finally clears Villeneuve. And now he can really set sail. So, Gary, Scott Goodyear's perception of that confrontation.
The chicane, the festival corner, has been the hot spot all day long, and you and Bryan Herta end up getting into it, and what has been a great frustrating season for you continues. Now tell us what happened from your seat.
Well, we had a good weekend going along. We didn't qualify all that well yesterday afternoon. We lost some ground with a car, but we got it back this morning. But tough track to pass on. It's almost a little bit like Detroit, and you have to take every advantage that you can get. And
I was trying to run down with Mario because every time we get the traffic, I wanted to be able to get him, and I just didn't want to have to be hung behind Herta there because he just came out of the pits, and we didn't have enough room, and we lost out.
Thank you, Scott. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
All right, Paul.
So continuing to center up on Mike Groff, Dominic Dobson sits up just behind him.